Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and now we're on from 8 to 9 a.m. or 8:06 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday. We hope that you'll tune in. We also podcast these programs at richarddugan.com, SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We're also on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will. And I also hope that you will tune in at the link that allows you to listen live online at richarddugan.com. We also ask that you subscribe and at least a notification, click notification so that you can be notified when we do have a new conversation up there, such as the conversation we're going to get into today with a returning guest here on the program and a very important subject that we're going to talk about here on Tell Me Your Story. We ask also that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we would be so gratefully appreciative. We have a PayPal account, as we have for the last 15 years. It's there for your security as well as ours. And whatever amount you can support us with, we would be ever so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you to those who have helped and those who will help. Put in my email address when they ask for it, richard@richarddugan.com, with any amount, as I said before. And also we ask that you take some time to spend some time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s. Go within, listening to that still small voice. With all of that being said, returning guest to our program, Arthur Kanegis. He is the director as well as producer of the, there's a website, but there's a movie called The World Is My Country. And Arthur, I want to thank you for joining us again. We've got a lot to talk about on this program, and it is always great to have an opportunity to chat with you and find out where things are going, especially with this. And I was thinking about this before the program started, this new club, this new country club. It's called The World Is My Country Club, and it has to do with some very interesting Zoom meetings that are going to be going on, but also a new movie that is out, or the promotion of maybe an old movie that we saw back in, believe it or not, folks, I believe it was 1983. But first of all, thanks for being with us here on the program.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to be on your wonderful program. Appreciate that so much. And yes, back in 1983, there was an incredible feature film, a made-for-TV movie called The Day After. And most of those in our generation remember it because more than half of the entire U.S. adult population watched that movie. 100 million people in the U.S. and 200 million in Russia. And it helped step us back from the brink of nuclear war. And what we're announcing today is not to bring back that old movie, but an incredible new documentary by Jeff Daniels, but we're the impact producers on it, but he's the director. And it's an incredible movie called Television Event. And it's about that amazing television event and how it shook up a nation, how it rattled President Reagan. It gave him nightmares. It made him shift his stance from trying to fight and win a nuclear war to the Soviets to saying a nuclear war can never be won and must never be fought, and that it's much better to be talking than to be rattling sabers at each other. So it's a fantastic, fun, uplifting movie that's filled with both humor and drama, but it captures the horror of the day after, but also the amazing hero's journey of, say, the key individuals who brought that incredible movie to the world despite all kinds of pressure. The legal department of ABC said they couldn't do it. The advertisers all pulled out. They had life threats against their life, but they managed to pull off this movie. And so we did hold a reunion of these courageous people who made that film, and we did this for the 40th anniversary, and we did that as the grand premiere for the new movie Television Event.
Now, the thing that is so fascinating to me is that I did watch that. I was 23 at the time, and I think that I don't want to say that it necessarily put the fear of God in me. I've never been afraid of God. It makes no sense to fear the one who created me, if you will, father figure, if you will, if you want to well, anyway, put a human,
Anthropomorphized.
thank you very much. Some days the words come out, some days they don't. Um, and it just astounded me that with the depictions in this film, which, by the way, I did see the little shorts that you have up on your website there of the making of the film, and then of course revisiting it some 40 years later. Um, uh, I thought, wow, we need to get a handle on this. And there have been some other films since then. There was one that was had Morgan Freeman was one of the main characters in it as well, that came out a few years back, where Washington was wiped out by a dirty bomb, as they call them now. And I'm just sitting here thinking, what in the world is going through the minds of these people who, they think that this is an answer. I mean, and even governments, our own government for that matter, thinks that they talk about deterrence. We need to have these deterrents to prevent. And it's like, yeah, but if you have it, then there is the possibility that you'll use it. And I know that that's a big concern on a lot of people's minds. Talk to us about the connection between the world is my country, and the message that the founder of this aspect of having world passports. By the way, I just renewed my
Yes.
U.S. passport, and now they have a card. You have the book, and you can also have the card.
Yes.
And
Well,
I just renewed that, but I have still longed to get the world passport,
you don't
which
have yours yet.
not yet.
Oh,
I'm 63, and I've got still got
it's
another.
very, very, very easy right on our website. There's a link where you can apply online and get it.
Yeah,
Okay, so let me tell you the link between the two.
please.
And this link that is what lingers in my mind, but it also lingered in the minds of Gary Davis. And that is, and the reason why we're supporting two films on the sort of opposite sides of the spectrum is, on the one hand, humanity needs a warning of the danger we're plunging toward. And on the other hand, it needs a vision of what is the alternative, where can we go, so that we can get out of that horror of descending into nuclear war and find a clear, reasonable path to how we can actually make a world that works for everyone and say a safe and secure future. So we're working the entire spectrum. But let me go back to what you asked about, Gary Davis. Now, our organization, Future Wave, has played a key role in create, and I, as the director, directed a movie about an amazing guy, Gary Davis, who was a bomber pilot in World War II. But that wasn't his purpose here on Earth. He was a song and dance man, a Broadway song and dance man. He stood in for Danny Kaye on Broadway and brought down the house. He loved to make people laugh. And suddenly he finds himself in an airplane killing people with bombs instead of killing with laughter. And he said, what in the heck am I doing up here? When he saw the pictures of all the people who were maimed and killed and destroyed, thousands of people destroyed but killed by his bombs, he said, something is very, very wrong. And after the war, he got back, and people are talking about all these, all the light chatter and what's next on show business and who's dating who. And he's like so troubled, he can't get into all that. And his friends are saying Gary's not funny anymore. But he says, humanity's got to do something. He sees the nuclear bomb arriving. He saw Hiroshima and Nagasaki, entire city wiped out by a single bomb. He said, what have I ordered back into the reserves to bomb Moscow in a war that will end life on Earth? Oh my God, I have to do something. But what can I do? I'm just an actor. And he goes on a quest to find out how to beat the most intractable enemy of all, war itself. And he reads an amazing book called The Anatomy of Peace, and suddenly it clicks in his head. Humanity has already invented a system that eliminates war. What? Are you kidding? Well, yes, we inside countries, it's illegal to commit a war against someone. Well, what about civil wars? Well, that's when you have two sovereignties or two governments. If everyone's accepting one government, we don't fight wars with each other. When Timothy McVeigh blew up the federal building years back, Oklahoma didn't declare war on Michigan to to retaliate because they had harbored the Michigan militia. We don't destroy a whole country. We handle it as a criminal justice issue, and the person is arrested and tried and put to justice. And this was sort of the point after World War II of the Nuremberg trials, that nations and presidents need to be subject to the rule of law. And yes, we see terrific miscarriages of justice and all kinds of things, but overall, we're much better with a system where you can take your disputes to court than where everybody just battles them out by seeing who they can kill. I mean, that must have been the craziest invention anyone came up to. How are we going to resolve our problems? Well, how do we find out who's right and wrong? Well, the person who can kill the most of the other people, they're right, and the one who can't kill as many is wrong. I mean, what a stupid way to resolve conflicts.
Mhm.
So humanity's got to imagine and picture a better way, where Gary says we're an very inventive species, and he goes on this journey on how to bring us into world citizenship. And if you go to theworldismycountry.com and watch the turtle and the little shorts, you'll see that he has an incredible journey and encounters with Einstein and Eleanor Roosevelt, and he has this incredible. He has the nerve to actually interrupt an entire session of the UN and say the nations you divide us and lead us to the brink of total war. And he calls on them to hold elections of a government of, by, and for the people of the world. Well, of course they don't do that, but some of the delegates even cheer him, and he launches a movement that. You won't believe it when you see the film, the incredible power this movement had, and sort of a lost piece of history we need to revive, because we need a movement for world citizenship. Everyone knows what they're against, but very few want to know what's the alternative. What are we for? And what we're for is a way that we can create an umbrella above the nations that divide us, above the all the cultures, that doesn't meld us all into one, but that protects our diversity and our richness of cultures and protects life on this planet, so we can go on dealing with all these other challenges and stuff and resolving them. But we need a planet to be able to do it on.
Mm. That is true, and this is the only one that we know of that we have, and we are not doing the greatest of jobs taking care of it. And I don't even get into the discussions with people about the science and climate change and da 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 da. I basically put it this way: we need to clean up our home, Arthur. We need to clean up our home. And that's really the bottom line. It doesn't matter whether or not you agree with the science or disagree with the science. This planet's a mess. And I don't know, I've heard arguments both ways that, the planet doesn't need us. The planet will clean itself up, but, it'll take care of it. Even if, like a dog after getting wet in the rain, comes inside and then shakes to get the water droplets off of its fur, it'll shake and get us off, if you will. If that's the process, there's nothing
Or
we
get
can
the
do
fleas
about it.
off, perhaps, would be.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's been the argument that, we're a parasite. I don't know that I'd go quite that far, but this is our home. This is where we live. Why aren't we taking better care of it?
Yeah, well, there's no question, you're right, that the planet itself, will go on. But life on Earth is in this incredible, fragile, little thin layer of atmosphere that keeps life alive on this planet. And it's a really precious thin layer. And we've got such an incredible, beautiful, amazing, complex planet. The more and more you find, dig into almost any subject, you find this incredible beauty and wonder of the planet. And yet at the same time, this species that's smart enough to send these probes into space and find out that trillions and trillions of miles and light years away, there's thousands of light years away, this is the only place we found so far with this incredible precious combination. It's a pretty lonely spot, and it would just be really stupid to ruin that little thin layer that makes it possible for us to have life here. And nuclear war is instant global warming. It throws so much soot and stuff into the atmosphere that would cause actually a nuclear nightmare. People talk about it as a nuclear winter, but winter's not right, because winter, comes around to spring and all that. But it's really a blanket that actually would of soot and everything that would destroy all crops, all life, no way to create food, no way to carry on, and we would really be destroying the very atmosphere that keeps life alive. So we need to both stop the slow destruction of our atmosphere, but also the instant destruction that would happen if we had a nuclear war.
Yeah. We're talking with a very special guest here on the program, director and producer of the film The World Is My Country, focusing on Gary Davis and the work that he accomplished in his lifetime to create what is basically a world passport, a world citizenship passport, among other things that are now available at the website that you just mentioned, theworldismycountry.com. But we're also talking here about the various things that are happening behind the scenes. I mean, you've got there's some things that are happening, these special events, the Zoom meetings, as they're called, and so forth, and they take place online. And there's a link at theworldismycountry.com/club, which we will be linked to, where you can sign up and register. Now, first of all, is there a charge for any of this?
First of all, people can join free and try it out. We would love it if people like with you would go ahead and subscribe. That would keep us going, and you definitely have the option to do that, and that's super important. But you can come to it without that. And what it is, yes, the World Passport is crucial, but it's sort of a tool and it's sort of a symbol of what is actually the world citizen government. It's a government. Gary actually, he said, back to Gary, I mean, when he said, we need to have governance above the planets that divide us, he realized that people are begging and pleading their governments, please do this. And he realized that they can't do it because their loyalty is to the part, not the whole. They stay in power because they can say, we're protecting you from those other bad guys, and they have to, keep us divided to conquer us. And he looked around and he saw that the universe. Well, he was instrumental, first of all, in helping to play a key role of rallying a huge rally on the eve of the vote that helped actually get the Universal Declaration passed unanimously. You'll see that in our movie, the UN vote. But he also, in that Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was agreed to by all the nations of the planet. It was a unanimous declaration, and back in 1948, and it was. It says it is that the will of the people shall be the basis of the sovereignty, basis of the sovereignty of nations. That we, the people, are the ones who create governments. Almost every constitution says we, the people, did this. So Gary says, well, wait a minute. We, the people, who are those? Are those some old guys in wigs, you see in the pictures? or is that you and I? And well, if it's you and I, why don't I just go ahead and do it? So he had the nerve to declare a government of, by, and for the people of the world. You see that in the movie. You see the people cheering. He did that on the city hall of the place where he was born, and since then, the World Service Authority continues to operate in Washington, D.C., and has some of the government functions of issuing passports, world IDs, world marriage licenses, birth certificates, all based on provisions in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. None of them are just out of the blue. They're all things that the Universal Declaration says are our rights, and it says right in the preamble that every institution and every person is supposed to enforce this. So we don't have to wait for governments to enforce it. This organization that is set up, the World Service Authority, is doing that. Now we're not that organization. That organization is headed by David Gallup, but our movie is about that organization, and we're very supportive of what they're doing. And if you go to our website and click on the World Passport tab, you'll see the World Passports and you'll be able to sign up for it. Do you want me to share my screen and show people a little of that, or
absolutely? Matter of fact, we'll do that as we continue here. I'm Richard Dugan, and we're talking with We're talking with Arthur Kanegis about this wonderful process. And just give me a moment here as we go through the process here to talk about what it is that one can do with a world passport. What is the shall we say, sort of the end result, so to speak? What's the purpose of having a world passport?
Oh, okay. Well, then do you want me to share screens or just tell you about that?
There we go. I think you should be able to share now.
Okay, let me do that. All right. So,
And this way
uh,
people can see what this is all about initially. And I'll let you put that together as we continue here talking about this process
okay,
of
we're going to do,
getting a world passport with Arthur, who is the director producer of the film "The World Is My Country," focusing on Gary Davis and what the work that he did to actually acquire the very first. He has number one.
yeah, Gary Davis has that. So, let me go first to our homepage. This is The World Is My Country. This is Gary Davis,
Mhm.
who and the movie about him, The World Is My Country, that won in all these different film festivals. And there Gary is with his world passport. And let me see for a second. Yeah, that's okay. And then this is where, this shows where he was refused entry by every country. And so then he ended up having to create his own world passport. And Martin Sheen introduces the film. And when you go to the website, you'll see let me play the little 1 minute trailer. Is that okay with you?
Sure, go right ahead.
Here's Gary Davis.
World citizen number one, Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis. Who, me?
You are about to hear from an everyday man with an extraordinary life story. He was an actor, a song and dance man who leapt off the Broadway stage onto the world stage in 1948, taking on cops, border guards, armies, and whole nations, showing us that we don't have to be awed by their props of power and control. For 65 years, as a citizen of no nation, only the world, Gary Davis made his own props of freedom, demonstrating that we, the people, can tear down the walls of oppression and write our own story. We can build a world that is constructive for all and destructive to none. A world in which all of us can truly say, the world is my country.
So on the website, you'll see other things and how to play that. But also what you're particularly talking about here is, well, we're talking about both the podcast and the passport. So let me first go to the passport. The world passport, and there's Martin Sheen with his, they're issued by the World Service Authority, the administrative arm of the world citizen government. Great thinkers from Socrates to Paine to Gandhi, Einstein, they've all called themselves citizens of the world. But now here's a actual concrete document that you can use to prove it, to claim your citizenship. It says right in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that everyone has the right to recognition of the person before the law, and everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and return to his country. Well, we see that's violated every day by governments, but that's because there's no law above the governments that divide us. Treaties are just, agreements that they break all the time. Even though the Constitution says they're the supreme law of the land, the U.S. Doesn't seem to honor that part of our Constitution. We've repeatedly broken many treaties, and especially the key treaties that are helping step us back from nuclear war. It's so crucial. But anyway, so over 5 million of the world documents have been issued. They include passports, birth certificates, and so on, world citizen cards. And by the way, you asked their function. They play a crucial role. These marriage certificates were especially important and are still important in jurisdictions where gay marriages are illegal, because they can get a marriage certificate from the World Service Authority to use to get housing and other things. The World ID cards are crucial. Many people in many countries, people don't have citizenship because whole groups of people are excluded, and they can't get medical care. They can't get their kids into school, so they can use the world passports or world birth certificates to be able to get crucial medical care for their families. And so people say, does the world passport work? And Gary always says, he says, no, it's a tool for claiming your rights. It doesn't work. You work the tool. And he talks about how you can stand tall and use the world passport. And on that page, you'll see, if you go to it, the podcast with David Gallup, the founder of the World Service Authority, who explains all these kind of things I've talked about, the incredible impact it's had and the incredible number of people who have used that passport to travel. In fact, if you go to the World Citizen Government webpage, which I got to through that link, you will see that this is where you order the documents. But if you go to it, you'll see that there are, let's see, where is it? The nations that almost every nation on Earth. Let me go back there to the world passport. Here we go, and facts here. So the world passport, which looks like that, it has it's been stamped by virtually every country in the world, and they show you those right on their website. You'll see the
list of the various
here.
countries.
There we go. Here, this is where we go to. Now this lists all the different. It shows you recent visa examples, and then it also shows you a list of over 184 countries that have stamped it. Now, as you go down this list, and it's a very long list, includes almost every country in the world, all but about 3 or 4 are included. And you click on any one of these numbers, like you click on, well, Algeria, you'll see a stamp that Algeria put in. If you click on, let's go back there. Let's go back to, anyway, you'll see once you go to that, let me not linger on that page anymore, but you'll see when you go to that virtually every country has at least once put stamps on them, and many have done visas numerous times. Many, like India, stamped it for and issued visas that have been submitted to them, but then sometimes they'll also refuse it, the same countries. But going back to our film, if you go to our podcast page, this is where you'll find the weekly meetings we have. Now, we are taking a Christmas break, but you can sign, like we have people who are part of the World Federalist Movement working for global security. But if you go to these past guest speakers, this is a pretty incredible one about our showing with television event. And if you go actually directly to theworldismycountry.com/nuclear, this is the film I'm talking about that we're going to be now getting on PBS stations across the country. Let me play you another little clip to introduce this. This is a meeting we set up, the 40th anniversary, bringing back the people who had created the day after. Actually, first, I'll give you I should show you the trailer of the day. Well, I'll show you this first, and then I'll show you
This is Lawrence, Kansas. Is anybody out there? Anybody? That's the line delivered by John Lithgow in the 1983 TV movie The Day After, viewed at the time by 100 million people, and still for a lot of good reasons being talked about today.
I saw The Day After when I was 5. My whole family piled into my basement in Flushing, Queens to watch The Day After as everyone else in the neighborhood was. And they had the sense at 5 years old to put me to bed before that iconic bombing sequence, thank God. But I got the picture. All these people I was being introduced to were about to die a grim, horrible death.
You go up and knock on someone's door and say, I'm from ABC and I'd like to blow your barn up.
Television Event is the name of Jeff Daniels' documentary about the challenges and political grief that director Nicholas Meyer and his team faced while filming The Day After in the middle of America's heartland. He'll screen it at Liberty Hall in Lawrence on December 4th, exactly 40 years and 2 weeks after that historic broadcast on ABC.
The White House issued instructions. We want the following edits.
Notes.
Like, I hope we're not going to see too much peeling skin in this movie of the week about nuclear war.
No.
1983 was one of the coldest years in the Cold War, only a short time after the U.S. boycotted the Moscow Olympics. And as Daniels points out, The Day After appeared on a media landscape that was vastly different than it is today.
This was a period where more people were watching network television than ever before or since. That's why you could get 100 million people watching the same thing at the same time to create that kind of shared emotional experience that people would talk about the next day, despite their differences.
Daniels will be joined at the screening by members of cast and crew, as well as Lawrence notables like former Mayor David Longhurst and longtime KU theater professor Jack Wright.
All this run down by the water was cleared out here, but it was full of stuff, tents down here. It was an amazing.
Despite many years of stage experience, Wright found himself learning by the seat of his pants as the movie's director of local casting. And there were lots of extras to cast.
I'd get home about 10 o'clock, I'd hit the sack, and I'd be up at 3, and we would be at work at 5:30, getting people hired and getting them into costume and makeup and getting them ready. I don't know if it could have happened really anywhere else because everybody was so excited about it, they wanted to be in it. The extras were, I think, really a highlight of the film.
The legacy of The Day After also touched Wright in another way. His stepdaughter, Ellen Anthony, snagged a small speaking role in the movie. While the cast included the likes of Lithgow, Jason Robards, Jo Beth Williams, and Steve Guttenberg, big names took a back seat to bigger concerns.
No, it's about common people. It's about what happens if something like this disaster happens and your life changes in a dime, just instantly. That's why, I think that's one of the reasons why the movie was so effective, really.
Both Spencer Research Library at KU and the Watkins Museum of History have collected artifacts from the production and the activities that followed. These buttons in the university's archives speak to a part of the story that is sometimes overlooked. A wave of citizen diplomacy, inspired, Bob Swan says, by this scene of cinematic devastation on 9th Street, just a block from his downtown insurance office.
And I'm standing there with my daughter Amy, and she said, "Daddy, are we going to have a nuclear war?" Fallout was falling down from a fallout machine. They had that coming down right in front of the Bulletin Board. So it was it had a powerful impact, and that's how I got involved to try to make a difference.
In the spring of 1983, Swan and associates like Mark Snow arranged for a group of Russian athletes to compete at the KU Relays. But that exchange was just the beginning of a people-to-people style relationship between the two nations that he continued to pursue.
We had about 23 or 4 different events and activities and exchanges, and things were going on all the time. I had 35 trips to the Soviet Union between about 82 and 93 or so.
Swan gets far fewer air miles these days, but now he's got a new goal. An international peace center headquartered in the town that survived Quantrill's raid and brought nuclear winter to people's TVs. The Day After, he says, was a game changer that, for a time at least, truly helped make the world safer.
The Day After grabbed Reagan, and he fundamentally changed his attitude and his strategy toward negotiations. He said, we need to just get rid of these weapons.
As a direct result of this film, you could see that the meetings that they had resulted into this shift in rhetoric. No longer could they allow members of their administration to say things like, with a shovel and 6 feet of dirt over your head, you can survive nuclear war. So I think it's quite significant that Reagan made that point in his State of the Union address, which was a few weeks after the broadcast of The Day After, and made that comment that nuclear war should never be fought and can never be won. It's a significant move for a television movie of the week.
that's that if you go into our podcast, you get to watch our whole discussion with and you can watch that whole reunion where the director of Star Trek movies, Nicholas Meyer, you saw in there, he directed Star Trek, several of the Star Trek movies, and wrote the one about the team crew coming back to bring whales from the present into the future because whales had gone extinct and humans were going to go extinct unless they could bring those whales back. And then we had a very interesting programs and other things, like we had, the Barbie movie. It was a pretty amazing. And Brianne Eisler wrote the book, The Chalice and the Blade, an incredible book about creating a partnership society. And we had her analyze the movie, the Barbie movie. We've had people who, is the war in Ukraine justified? We had executive director of Citizens for Global Solutions, another great group working on bringing people together as a planet. People who are leading solutionaries. We focus on not all just like for instance, Majid Groff. She and her team were winners of the Global Challenges Foundation's multi-million-dollar offer for best ideas on how to help the world develop a way of governing above the nations that divide us and creating world law. They have some incredible work that she's done, and we have John Fitzgerald on films that help transform the world. And we had the Red Cross has played a big role in working to try to prevent nuclear war because it's the ultimate health disaster. So anyway, you can scroll down in our website and see lots and lots of interesting podcasts and sign up to be part of it. There's another movie coming out called The Movement and the Madman on PBS. You can watch about that. So, and an Atomic Cafe, I was part of doing their, when they were doing their nuclear research down in the basement, I was working with that. And I also had a small role in the day after where I was the nuclear war researcher. In Washington, D.C., going down to the Pentagon, getting all this data and faxing it out to the crew so they could build accurate sets. And I did get a nice commendation that when the Reagan administration first thought they'd try to suppress the movie, they said, let's find errors in it and publicize those. And we can't find any errors. It's all very accurate about what would happen. So I was very happy to be part of the research team that made sure that was accurate. So that's a little bit of where you can go to look. And you can watch the film television event, and you can help us get it on PBS stations across the country. We're scheduled to begin that starting in April. We've already got a commitment from the American Public Television, which puts things out to the nations for PBS, to the stations for PBS. But we need local people to say, hey, to their station, hey, we want you to broadcast it here. We need funders and donors and others to help wake people once again to the danger of nuclear war through that through seeing that.
Well, to me it's fascinating the film itself when it was originally released, and again 40 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been 40 years. That film, though I didn't necessarily remember the title of the film, I remembered the message in that film. And even back then, I even heard a little bit of the controversy from the governmental standpoint that, well, and it goes back to this same argument that I hear that it's a rather famous line in a more modern film with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. Who are you, whoever you are, to tell me I can't handle the truth? I can't handle the realities of something. That's, I think, the thing that bothers me and a lot of other people as well, that we have these institutions that want to tell us what we can and cannot handle. If I have to go to therapy after seeing this movie, I'll go to therapy after seeing this movie, back in '83. But the reality is that it wasn't, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the film was not generated to generate fear. It was more to inform people about the realities of said nuclear war or Holocaust, or however you want to phrase it, that it's not winnable by even the country that quote unquote wins.
Right.
I mean,
Even if a country were to launch an all-out nuclear strike and never get a retaliatory blow, it would still have destroyed itself, because the global impact, both in radiation and in the cloud that covers the Earth, and then the possible vaporization of the atmosphere that comes about. Once you start throwing that balance off, we could end up being like Venus, a planet without an atmosphere. That atmosphere is very fragile, and we need to protect it. But I think you're right. Many institutions have kind of blocked us even from the day after being rebroadcast, partly for technical reasons. But this other film sort of does capture scenes of it using fair use, because ABC won't release that film again. But what I will show you, though, is briefly the trailer for The Day After. Let me show you that a second here.
Sure, go right ahead.
We had enough nuclear weapons to kill every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth 54 times over. 54 times over.
1983 was the coldest part of the Cold War, at least since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
I was thinking, what if I just made a movie showing what nuclear war was?
What? You out of your mind?
P.S. Never thought it would get on the air.
You go up and knock on someone's door and say, I'm from ABC and I'd like to blow your barn up.
Bob taps me on the shoulder. They want to talk to you.
The White House issued instructions. We want the following edits.
Notes, 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 notes.
Like, I hope we're not going to see too much peeling skin in this movie of the week about nuclear war.
No, no, no.
He's passionate.
Even the crew kept saying, are you sure this is going to be on television?
2 weeks from going on the air. Front page of the New York Times. No one under 10 can watch it. No one over 12 can watch it. No one under 16 can watch it. I mean, I was getting threats on my life.
Nobody on network television had ever been shown anything close to this.
Those locations were the locations of my childhood. That's really hard to watch.
That may have been the first and last time a serious conversation about the danger of nuclear war happened in front of the entire American public.
We saw our community destroyed this evening. We saw all the nightmares come true.
I'm not going to argue with the fact that the movie changed history.
Yes, Ronald Reagan says in his autobiography that it troubled him deeply. He had nightmares, and this was really the key thing that helped him switch. But also, tons and tons of people fired up into an incredible nuclear freeze movement that did help us roll back the threat of nuclear war for a while. But now we're dangerously plunging toward it with nuclear threats over Ukraine, with Korea, with all various more, Israel, whatever. And so we're really it's sort of unbelievable that in the 70 years since then, we haven't found a way to kind of contain these and to try to find a way to put together an alternative. In the movie Oppenheimer, he advocated a world government. He said, we've got to have, and Einstein strongly said, the only way we can keep humanity from descending into barbarism and nuclear war is to have a world government above the nations that divide us. And I think that what happens is, in our movie, Gary says, does world government scare you? And he says, well, it does me too, if it's the same old forces of power and money controlling our lives from behind closed doors. But what if we run it? And that's what our podcast and what Gary was all about. How do we invent an interactive way that we can use these marvelous new tools we have with the internet we the people to be interactively involved? We've got these Zoom meetings and so on. We could interact across the cultures that divide us. We could develop ways of having revolutionary conversations, interactive conversations that bring together people on opposite sides of issues. We could develop, instead of the win-lose politics we're facing now, we could create a new, what Gary called a synergistics, he called it syntegrity, a synergistic system with integrity, where we bring people together to focus not on who's right and who's wrong, but what are the solutions? What are our dreams and hopes for the future? What do we each want? And how do we come together and create a new way of interactively bringing to the top what is the will of the people? I mean, there's not currently no way to express it. There's not a way to have there's no world parliament. There's no way that people can be directly involved. It's nation states that divide us, and we're all kept divided in the dark. And if you take any one of these conflicts, the Arabs and the Israelis, the people, the Palestinians and the Israelis. My daughter heads the American Friends Service Committee office in Washington, D.C., or Kanegis. And there are so many wonderful, like there's schools that have had Palestinians and Israelis together where the kids have come to love and care for each other. And, these same people that are in these systems that are dividing us and making us do horrible things to each other, if they're put into a different system and a different interactive way of coming together, they find that they're people and they're human beings and they have the same kind of hopes and dreams for their children in the future. And we need a system that rises above the divisions, that brings us together instead of falling into the threat to survival of the very survival of life on Earth.
Absolutely. Arthur Kanegis is my guest. He's the producer and director of The World Is My Country, focusing on Gary Davis, who helped to create the World Passport. And of course, there are other documents, other world documents, birth certificates and marriage licenses and so forth. One of the things that has struck me, Arthur, is having worked for 15 years for a Christian radio station and listened to the stories of the quote unquote prophecies. And again, everybody's got their own perspective. There are certain groups that say, no, all those prophecies, they've already happened. Others say they're about to happen. Others say, they're going to happen, and so on and so forth. And I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking, when this particular segment of our society, and they have a free right to their perspective and their belief, but they seem as though they are a bit on the surprised side when things such as the events that happened in the Middle East or that happened in the Ukraine, they seemed a little surprised. And then they, of course, attach the various prophecies from their holy writ to say, see, we were right. See, look what's happening. But the thing is that they've been saying that from my perspective, again, going back to the 80s. It's like they've been saying the same thing every time something, this is it, this is the end, this is the signs of the end, and so forth. And I'm sitting here thinking, then why are you surprised? Why are you shocked? Isn't this in the plan that your God has laid out? Why are you surprised? And I'm sitting here as the optimist. It's the guy who believes that the glass is half full, that this is not the end, that we are not on the brink of annihilation, no matter how bad it might seem, that it only takes one to start saying enough. And when I say it only takes one side of one of these conflicts to say, enough, we're done. I remember when the war broke out almost 2 years ago in Ukraine. I said, if I had the resources, I would jump on a plane to Moscow. I would say, get out of my way. I'm going into the Kremlin. I'd grab that little knucklehead by the ear and say, your mother is ashamed of you. This is not the way we play in the 21st century. It's over. You're going into permanent timeout. No, not going to kill him. That would be contrary to what I believe. He has a right to be here, but not to do the things that he's doing. And we have a right to say, no, this is not the way, as I said, this is not the way we play this game. No, there are.
Yeah, well, see, there are already international laws that say you're not allowed to do that. The problem is we don't have a way to enforce it.
We don't enforce it, right? Exactly.
Because, I mean, so many of these things are illegal. You're not allowed to, on both sides in the Gaza thing. Hamas isn't allowed to go in and kill civilians. Israel's not allowed to go bombing people to try to get it. They're both all in every single war. Every side thinks that they're fighting for the right and the other's fighting for the wrong, and they all have a different story.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter who's
Yeah.
right and who's wrong. It's that the system is broken. The very
Yeah.
idea that we
Yeah.
can solve things. Think about our society. What if we said, okay, my neighbor over here is wrong. We're going to go bomb his house. He's going to go bomb ours. Or this neighborhood, we're going to go bomb the neighboring neighborhood. I mean, it's unthinkable inside countries. You don't solve things that way. You go to court. You say, hey, they're infringing on our water rights. You don't say, okay, well, we're gonna go bomb them. I mean,
Right.
it's the stupidest way to resolve things. So I
Yeah.
think the problem is a broken system. It's not a problem of bad people on this side or that side.
No.
I mean, it doesn't even matter if it's Putin or someone else.
Mhm.
It's a system that is making war the solution and the ultimate solution when it isn't. It's a solution that everybody loses. And
Yeah.
when you look at it, the mightiest empires, the United States with the answer comes in the cats and dogs.
Yeah.
They know a better way.
They
Just show a
absolutely
little
do.
love and we can do things.
Absolutely.
Anyway, if you go back to the system being the problem, and that is that if you could change the players out. In every conflict, we always demonize. We say, oh, there's Putin, there's Saddam Hussein, whoever it is, there's one bad guy. But it's not one bad guy. It's a bad system that propels into power the people who are most destructive. The people of Russia don't want this. I made a movie called War Without Winners, and we had Hasbucks, we traveled over to the Soviet Union and talked to ordinary people on the street. And I went over in the height of the Cold War, and they loved Americans. Everybody wanted to know about our shirts and the Beatles and how they get blue jeans. And they were, when I went to Russia in 1964 as a high school student, and here we are, we're going to blow up the world. And we want to blow up the world to kill these people. And all they want to do is have our blue jeans and have our music and rock and roll, and it's a systems that are dividing us. People everywhere could come together. And I think that was the whole point of the world is my country, that if we people, get it through our heads that we don't have to get stuck in this nation state system. It's like a prison we're in. We're locked inside these nation states when we, the people, could rise above them. We're already doing it on the internet. I mean, the nation states become sort of irrelevant as you rise above, and you can order from all over the world. You can talk to people all over the world. We can interact around the world. We can have Zoom conferences around the world. And it's only these broken systems of lines we've drawn on the planet that aren't even real. I mean, it's not really, for instance, a line between where I am here in Baja in Mexico, where we have this beautiful ocean, and this ocean extends all the way up into the United States. And there's no line when you get to the border. It's a line that was drawn on a map, and people get killed over that line. They face huge problems over it, economic destruction, all these destructions caused by invisible lines that we've drawn. It's like it's almost unbelievable. Why would we do that? Why would we draw a line and cage people into one or another? Why don't we have a system where we can interactively come together as a planet and solve these problems? Almost every one of the problems that seem insurmountable, unsolvable from inside the broken nation state system become eminently solvable when we rise to become citizens of one world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then we become responsible for that one world. And that's the way it ought to be. We take responsibility. We do what we can in our little corner of the globe to let's say, clean it up, as I mentioned earlier in the program. Arthur Kanegis is my guest, director, producer of The World Is My Country with theworldismycountry.com/club. We encourage you to go there. We'll be linked to that specific website so that you folks can participate in this new venture, if you will, which is more of an extension of the current venture of, again, the world is my country, and maybe going after, I know that I'm going to pursue the process of getting a world passport. I have the U.S. passport and card, but I'm going to expand that, and I hope that you will consider the possibilities. I will say this before we wrap things up, just again, and what I share on this program are my observations. I'm neither right nor wrong. I'm just observing and sharing those perspectives. And I was in a production of an event that took place. It was fictitious, the event itself, in 1924 on Ellis Island. A group of 3 different nationalities, Eastern European Jews, Germans, and Irish. And also some those who were from Spain and so forth. And they were stuck on Ellis Island on Christmas Eve because the law had just changed at that time to where now there were quotas. Well, the quotas had been met, so these folks had to stay on Ellis Island over Christmas. And one of the aspects of the production had to do with the Christmas in the trenches. Christmas in World War I, where there was the ceasefire between the two sides, and they exchanged alcohol and food and this and that and the other and good wishes, and they played a soccer game. All of that was verifiable, although they never were able to figure out who won the soccer game, which really wasn't relevant. But one of the lines in there had to do with, this is this going to be the war to end all wars? And it is said that even to this day, it is still considered the most brutal war that man has ever in the 20th and 21st centuries that has ever been perpetrated, if you will, on humanity. And the thing that is so interesting is that the observation that I'm leading to is this. Supposedly, if it was the war to end all wars, to where we would never let it happen again, and yet there's a song called The Green Fields of France, where it talks about that aspect, where this young man is talking to the gravestone of a young man by the name of Willie McBride, and saying, did you think that by you and your comrades, the thought that by joining the fight that you would this would be the war to end all wars? Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's happened again and again and again and again and again. To my observation, all soldiers, living or dead, who have served, and again, my hat's off to them for their willingness to do so, have those who have died especially, all died in vain, because we are still fighting as a species, humanity. And if we want to change that to where their lives actually mean something in their passing, then we need to stop fighting. Again, an observation on my part. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We've done what we've done. We've had World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the list goes on to the present day. It's time. Obviously, that solution doesn't work because we're still fighting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It never works. I mean, here you have the most powerful empires in the world.
Yeah.
You know, we pounded Vietnam for well over a decade, killed 3 million Vietnamese, and it didn't achieve any objective. Well, the most powerful, Russia pounded Afghanistan, and we pounded them for another 20 years, and all we did is push them more into the hands of the Taliban. It didn't liberate women or do any of the things we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And the domino theory in Vietnam, that was baloney. They never were going to become a Chinese domino. They fought China for 1,000 years before that. It's all these. We're all being told these false stories, and then we fight these wars for decades and kill incredible numbers of people, millions and millions of people, and we never achieved the objective. It never, neither Russia nor the U.S. could defeat the people in Afghanistan. They just pushed the most brutal and worst people into power because that's the only people that could sort of stand up to protect their people when they were being so brutalized by others. It's that whole abuser syndrome. Anyway, I think the solution. I do want to point before we leave to how people can join us in the solution. Do you want me to jump to that now, or how much more time do we have?
Let's jump to that now because we are getting close to wrapping things up here. But go ahead, please.
Okay. So what I want to do is share screens and invite people to come to the. Let me invite you to come to our GoFundMe site because it's crucial.
The World is My Country was made possible by.
So we have this opportunity this shows what we raised from the beginning. We raised a lot of this money to get The World Is My Country on PBS stations, and we had it shown on over 100 PBS stations coast to coast. And now we are raising money to put the television event on. Now, the reason this costs money, there are numerous costs. PBS, we don't have to pay PBS to put a television event on, but to get many stations to know about it, to have station relations people working with that, to get it publicized, to have people know about the broadcast so they tune into them, all that, and to set up to edit the film and to get it ready for the TV version, which is shorter. That all takes money. So if you go to this GoFundMe, if you just go to GoFundMe and you just search for The World Is My Country, but you'll also see television event on there. You'll see some of the trailer and things you watch there. And you can donate any amount. You can donate 10, 20, or like here, Al Jubas put up 10,000, and he challenged us to get, if we can get matching grants of 10,000, we can get another 10. So we need everybody to come and help us match that, so we can reach our overall goal of getting both these programs widely shown and distributed, and to carry on our work. So please do go there, and also then go to the podcast page, theworldismycountry.com, and come to our podcast.
Yeah.
And if you do both those things, you'll be making a big step toward helping us shift our story and that's why I love what you say. Tell me your story. I mean, in every one of these wars are all fought over stories.
Yeah.
One guy's story, there's a country western song. I live in a 2-story house. You've got your story, and I've got mine. And that's what it is. In every one of these wars, each person, it's always we're the good guys and we're fighting the bad guys, and they're unbelievably evil, beyond comprehension evil, and we have to destroy them. And once we destroy them, we'll succeed, and we'll live happily ever after, and ride off. And it's the old melodrama, we'll ride off into the sun with the girl. And it never really works. No matter how many bad guys you kill, you just create more enemies and more bitterness and more anger. And killing bad guys does not solve the problem.
No. There's actually a survey that came out not too long ago here in this country, here in the United States, and it had to do with our political parties. And each side in this survey, the majority, have basically said, if only the other side would just go away, disappear, then the world would be a happier place. And it's like, that's not how it is. We are all here together. If it were by the Creator's design that each one of us, I've said this before, if it were the Creator's design with all of the trillions of galaxies that there are in the universe, each one of us could have our own planet. But guess what? That is not the way it is. We are all here together. And that says to me that, okay, we're supposed to learn how to work and play and grow together and so forth. And that's what The World Is My Country is all about. theworldismycountry.com/club. We encourage you to go there. We encourage you to watch the film as well and support the work that Arthur Kanegis is all about. I'm Richard Dugan, and this is Tell Me Your Story. Arthur, before we wrap things up here, first of all, thank you for giving us so much time here on the program. And again, folks, these are perspectives that are out there. This is nothing new. There are those of us who I have not served. I can't because of my vision, but nonetheless, tired of this particular story. The end is always the same. And as Einstein stated, that insanity, the definition, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Guess what? We haven't gotten a different result. But I think there's another key phrase of Einstein's. You cannot solve the existing problem or deal with the existing challenge with the consciousness that created it. And that's part of what we are doing here on this program. That's part of, I think, what you are doing, Arthur, and right, helping to raise the consciousness. And I want to thank you so much for being a part of Tell Me Your Story.
You're absolutely right. You can't solve it at the same level at which it was created. You have to rise to a higher level, and then we can solve these problems. And so let's join together to a higher level, create new stories for our world, new stories that bring us together instead of tear us apart. And that's the key to survival here on this planet, is to to imagine, to envision, to picture, and then to move toward that. In our personal lives, if we can imagine and visualize what we want, we're more likely to get there. If all we imagine, like you said, is doom and gloom, that's where we're to get. But if we can imagine how the world can come together and we can picture it clearly, and if we can create movies and television shows that take us into that alternative vision, we can have a powerful way to align the stories on the planet so that we can survive and thrive.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap things up, I do have three final questions that I wanted to ask you, as I ask all of my guests. Though you're a returning guest, we ask the same three questions, or at least we ask the three questions. They've changed over the years here in our 15th year, and we're very grateful for the fact that we are here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and now with the 8 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday edition of Tell Me Your Story. We certainly hope that you'll join us for all these as we stream live at those times at richarddugan.com, with podcasts at SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. And we're also on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will avail yourselves, subscribe, at least click notifications so that the next conversation that's posted, you'll know about it. We also ask that if you can support the work we are doing here financially, we would greatly appreciate it. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. We also ask that you spend some time going within and listening to that still small voice. Regardless of what the questions are, the answers are there. That's why we refer to it as perfect vision during the decade, the 2020s, where that is where you personally will get the information, the insight, the inspiration, the encouragement that you need and are looking for as well. With all of that being said, the final three questions for my very special guest here on the program. Who is Arthur Kanegis?
Well, Arthur Kanegis is a peacemaker. I mean, since I was 4 years old, and I said to my dad, "Dad, why don't they melt down all the guns and turn them into doorknobs?" Since then, I've been interested in how do we open the doors to peace.
What gets you out of bed in the morning?
I usually lie there in bed and start thinking about all the important things I need to do and people I need to connect with to help build this world and create this vision, and to help get some of the movie screenplays that I've written to the key people who can actually get them produced, to get these television shows out more widely. You know, I keep thinking of how can we bring this new story and how can we bring new stories to the world, and how can we bring transitional stories that move us from the stories that divide us and to the world that we all want to come together on. How do we create the stories of the end vision and the journey there?
And finally, what was your best day?
What was my best day? The best day, I think. I mean, one of them was when we got the day after on the air, and I was there and we'd help put together that whole studio discussion. And when 100 million people saw that film and actually did start to step us back from nuclear war, I thought, wow, we've really done it. We've reached 100 million people. But I also had a somewhat similar feeling when when my movie War Without Winners was shown on TV around the country, and that was very upbeat to get over 10,000 letters from people who've been moved by it. And again, you can see that at theworldismycountry.com. Go to /nuclear, and you'll see that film and television event and so on. So I'd say it's when I feel my best days are when I feel I've really had an impact and made a difference, and that's why we want to create a global interactive system where everybody can feel they've made an impact and they've made a difference, and they can actually, that we don't have to frustratingly bang our heads against the wall, that we actually can create the world we choose.
Well, Arthur, once again, thank you so much for being with us here on the program. I really do appreciate the time and your observations as well. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, just remember that when I am sharing what I am sharing, they are my observations. I'm not putting this on anybody else. I am just saying this is This is my perspective, and we all have a right to our own perspective. The question is, are we willing to talk about these different perspectives? Because we're going to learn something from one another, as we have learned today from Arthur Kanegis, in reference to not only the day after, but also, of course, the film that he is most notable for, I believe, and that is The World Is My Country. Go to theworldismycountry.com/club and find out more. Get your passport, get the copy of the movie, or watch the movie online. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am listening. Dad, continue to be happy, because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.